I really don't know.
I don't know.
Right, and whatever you do with that, that's what you're going to bring into a marriage. So today we're going Facebook Live with it. Hello, our live people. We are doing our selection process class. How not to get got.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that everybody wants to know about are those questions. So for tonight, we want you to know, leave that list of questions alone. That long list of questions that everyone has.
What's
Why?
your GPA? Did you go to college?
Yeah, what's your GPA? I don't know your GPA.
I mean, does that GPA really mean that you know how to treat me with mercy and kindness?
It doesn't.
Yeah.
Right, because we know people who are highly intellectual,
PhD candidates,
and who suck at marriage.
Right, exactly.
So that really doesn't matter about your GPA.
Yeah, your educational level.
Right, and the other thing, the way that people think, this is how I'm going to be able to nab him. Hi, Danita. Walaikum salam. Love you also.
Masha
Hi,
Allah.
Raida. Oh, good. Thank you. Glad to see everybody. And so when people think, oh, I'm going to check your credit history, I'm going to tell you right now. Okay, I do like a man with a nice beard who walks around looking like good credit.
What you trying to say?
That's you, baby. I'm
Okay.
talking about you.
Okay.
However, the thing is that I would much rather have, it's not ideal, but I would rather have a brother with, a credit score that we got to work out.
Mm-hmm.
And he treats me well, and he loves me good. Hi, Jamila. He treats me well, and he loves me good. Because we can work on a credit score.
Right. I mean, really, it's just a matter of him getting it together. Maybe he may not know, or she may not know certain things about how to budget or how to pay bills on time.
Hi, Raida.
But they go to work
Sherry.
every
Hi,
day.
cousin.
They go to work every day,
right?
And they pay their bills,
right? And so those are the things that can be worked out. And so we always think I'm going to find out all these things about someone's background, and as if these things are going to prevent me from getting got. And so let's look at the questions now. Hassan and I, we had to come up with our own questions, and we have them cut up into different areas. And one of the first areas that we look at is faith, because I'm really hoping that folks are looking for someone who's God-fearing.
Exactly.
Okay. Because spirituality is a large component of what it is that we do. And these are things that you need to come up. And we came up with these questions based on the things that we got from other people. Okay, so things such as, what faith community would you prefer to attend? Assalamu alaikum. Walaikum salam, Habiba.
I mean, and because that's a serious question. I know even when Naila and I
got
married,
he wasn't talking the same thing. He wasn't describing it the same way that I do. And Tawana, you just said they fake that too. But you know what? It's not really about whether or not they fake it. You can fake it. It's about how I respond to it. And this is the problem. We get a standard. We get our standard, and then we decide that this is my standard, this is how I want things to be. And then a person comes along and we change our
right. I mean, and we change our standards and compromise our values.
And that's it. And so people think, oh, okay, I have to lower my standards. Okay, yeah, I might lower my standard in regard to a credit score. I may lower my standard in regard to income. And I may lower my standard in regard to education. These are very superficial things. But I'm not lowering my standard on your love for God.
Right.
I'm not lowering my standard on integrity.
Right.
I'm not lowering my standard on how I want you to treat my children.
On decency.
Exactly. And these are the things that you don't lower your standard on. The problem is that we have this belief that having this high standard of these superficial things is going to get us this super person. And that's bull.
Right.
It's bull.
Right.
It's not. It's not. And so you ask, what Islamic community do you prefer to attend? What faith community are you a part of? What are your expectations for holidays? Yes, Jamila said, come through. What are your expectations for holidays?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you perform your prayers on time? Now, people are going to say, yes, I'm going to perform my prayers on time. And that's one of the things that you're really not going to know. But you are actually going to, if you ask the right questions, you are going to see in a faith-based lifestyle.
I mean, not only that, let's keep that thing real. Do you pray? Do you know how to pray? And people will say, man, that's a crazy question. No, it isn't.
No, it's not, because we have seen people get married and then he can't lead her in prayer. Why are you marrying someone who can't lead you in prayer? It's okay. She said it. You said it's cutting out, but you can come back in. It's recorded. How do you do that? Well, one of the ways, I'll tell you how we did it. Hassan, he came to meet me and my children. He had his son with him. And while we were there, prayer came in. And I asked, okay, it's my house. Would you please lead us in the salat? And yes, I admit, listening to him talk and saying neckties weed, I was standing there. Y'all know I lost my little khushu, right? Y'all know. I'm in the prayer thinking, oh, alhamdulillah, I might have found him. And this is how I knew this is a man who can lead me in prayer. Why? Because he was in my house leading me and my kids in prayer during the dinner. It's like, duh. These things are really easy to be able to find out. Mm-hmm. Okay, another aspect. We talk about. I'm going to skip down to sex. Can I skip down to sex? We want to talk about sex.
Oh my God.
Because we know instances where, true story, where the couple, they got married and one of them has an ex that is now in a same-sex marriage, a same-sex legal marriage. And so how does this happen? And they're all Muslim. How does this happen? It does. And any of us are at risk of it. Your ex could then decide to become a homosexual. And here you are having to co-parent with a same-sex couple. And this is exactly what happened. So, whereas the person, they're married, but I have no idea that I'm now going to co-parent, that my child, their mother or their father now has a stepfather or a stepmother who's now gay. This is true story.
This is true story. Now,
this is what happens.
And mommy is sleeping with mommy, and
yes,
or whatever the case may be, and then they walk in on stuff or whatever the case may be, and you have to deal with that.
Right, and they bring that back to your house.
Right.
And so this is a precaution. How do you take that precaution? Honest to God, that's one that you really can't take. But, definitely always ask, have you been attracted or you had relationships with person of the same gender? I'm going to tell you, most people will tell you no. But at this point in time, y'all, I'm going to give you a very, very simple clue. Because we do have people who are transgendered, and everyone doesn't want to be in a transgendered relationship unknowingly. I personally know people who are transgendered and they don't tell it. Mm-hmm. So what you can ask for family photos. Family photos. Then let me see pictures. What is your 5th grade picture? So I can see, were you male then or were you female?
Mm-hmm.
It seems very, very, very small. There's a question that people like to ask. Oral sex. How do I find out if someone is willing to engage in oral sex? How do I know if I don't want to do it? Mm-hmm. And what if you expect me to do it? Mm-hmm. How am I going to ask you about that? Mm-hmm. What do you do?
What did I do?
Oh. Don't say what you did.
Oh.
Because you don't know how to cut corners.
No, me?
So we're not going to do what Hassan did.
I tell you.
But what you can do is, what we suggest that you do to find out about oral sex is, you can, yes, we go in there, Tawana. How you find out about oral sex you go in there? Yes. Good idea. Yes, old photos is a good idea. How you can find out about oral sex is you ask, could you give me your understanding about what is permissible or acceptable sexually between a husband and a wife, and tell me to what extent you would like to go. We love you too, Tawana. Tell us to what extent. Tell me to what extent that you would expect of me if we were to marry. I'm not asking anyone about size, Tawana. And I'm going to tell you why we're not going to ask about size. And I'm going to just say it. All men think they got the biggest and the best and the baddest every woman will ever have. They're not going to... They're not going to tell you the truth about size.
What?
They're not going to tell you the truth about size.
Look, I had to wipe my forehead.
Look at him. He's triggered. He's messed up. He triggered.
Hey.
Men don't tell the truth about size.
Gold on them tips. What you talking about?
You got gold on your
tip?
tip?
Gold on that tip. What you talking about?
Anyway, Hassan, men are not going to tell you the truth about that. Mm-hmm. So that's not something that you're going to be able to get the truth. Right. You're not going to be able to get clarity about. Mm-hmm. But what you can, again, what you can just say is, tell me what your understanding is and what you would expect from your husband or your wife in regard to what is permissible. Because we may have an idea about what's permissible with God, or within the framework of the religion, but then what I want personally is something different. And that's the way you can ask that.
Well, and because here's another incident too, and I think it has to be understood about this. And again, I'm not saying, sister, how your size or whatever the case may be, but asking about a person's sexual health would be important for some men.
You hear that? Sexual health. Right.
You have to line this thing up right. And what do you mean? Oh, well, do you have testosterone issues? A man get at a certain age, do you have testosterone issues? If it's a man and he's talking to a woman, do you have some low drive? Some women get at a certain age and it's like, man, I could take it or leave it. Mm-hmm. But then they still want companionship.
Right. And so a way that you can ask about that is you can say, okay, in your last relationship, what was it that you required for intimacy? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's a way that based on the last time you were intimate, I can get that information. Some people give you a true story here. This gentleman, prior to coming to Islam, the only way he was able to achieve sexual satisfaction is if he used a controlled substance. Mm-hmm. Okay, and so then he becomes Muslim and he's no longer using controlled substances. Wonderful, right? Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? Now he can't achieve sexual satisfaction because he never understood that he had now made a connection between sex and
the controlled substance.
Right, between sex and the controlled substance. Mm-hmm. Now he needed each of them. in order to achieve his own sexual gratification. So you get married and you can't satisfy your wife because you're not high anymore.
Right.
Did he tell her that? No. Truthfully, I can't even say that he knew that until he stopped getting high. Did he know that when I stop getting high, that I'm not going to be able to have an orgasm? Because that's really what we're talking about here. Mm-hmm. No, he didn't. But if he had been asked the question, what did you use or what did you require when you were intimate before? If he had been asked that and he were truthful.
Mm-hmm. And that's the next thing. He or she will have to be truthful about where they are in their sexual health. Right.
And he were truthful. Then he would say, well, I'm one of those who I really haven't had a sexual relationship without getting high. Mm-hmm. And then that way she would have known. Now granted, let's say he lies and he doesn't include that information and it comes out within the marriage. Mm-hmm. Okay? Well, we still have to deal with the problem. But at least then in the marriage, I'm going to just say it. If she decides she wants to leave the marriage, she has grounds. Because I asked this question, you told me exactly what it was that you required for sexual intimacy. And you did not tell me that you required a blunt. You never told me that.
Right. I mean, and last example, you have a brother who can't achieve, not only can he not achieve an erection, but then he has what they call a retracted
private
part. So not only does he deal with erectile dysfunction or intimacy level, but then it goes back in him. I guess that's what it's
right.
called.
And so in this instance, this gentleman, he was not able to use condoms because if he did, he lost the ability to become aroused. Okay, if you know that that's something that you're not going to use, in order to have a sexual relationship and to be able to satisfy someone, I'm not going to be able to use a condom, then say that. You know this because you learned it from your last relationship. Yeah, exactly. That's how he knew it.
Exactly.
And so there are ways to get some of these questions out. The next part of our lifestyle questionnaire is we have something we call micro penis. Tawana, I'm upset because you know the name, okay? Tawana know the name. Okay. I didn't need to know the name. We call operations management. Why do we call it operations management?
Because this is going to be your day-to-day workings on how this relationship is going to take place. What's all needed in order to function properly in your household?
Right, because a marriage really is a business. It is a business. And the business has to have some type of protocol.
And processes.
Right. Now, this is how we're going to tell you how people mess up. We describe our business relations as a single person. I tell you all about how Naila functions on a day-to-day basis as a single person. Hi, Jaleesa. Hey, baby.
Who?
Jaleesa.
My dog?
Yes, your daughter.
Okay.
Y'all tell Jaleesa happy birthday. Yesterday was her birthday.
Yes.
That's my bonus daughter. Hi, Gail. Glad to see you here. So, what you do in regard to the operations management, this is how you function. If you describe your level of functioning as a single person, that really doesn't describe how you're going to be as a married person.
Exactly.
The person that how he functioned before we got married is not the same. And I know mine. I know mine wasn't the same. So a couple of things that we want you to talk about is what personal habits that you have that others talk to you about but you don't mention, but you know about. Okay, so what is one of your personal habits that you have?
Who, me?
Yeah, don't deny nothing.
I don't know I have any personal habits.
You don't have any personal habits?
Mm-mm.
Yes, you do. You know what you do?
But I do.
You leave stuff everywhere.
Oh.
You just lay stuff around.
No, I don't just lay it around. I put it in a particular place so I can get it when I come back to it. I know where it is.
Okay, he lay it out in the open, in your way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what's one of my personal habits?
Ooh.
I don't have any.
Blowing out of proportion.
Blowing things out of proportion. Okay, yes. When I get upset, sometimes I get stuck. I get stuck, and it takes me a minute.
If it's 1, it's 100 after it's over with. Okay.
Yes, because if I love you, I would be I feel so disappointed that someone that I love has disappointed me. That's a habit.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm not organized.
Yeah. And as she talk about me leaving stuff all over the place, and she's not organized, right?
Okay, but I don't leave stuff just laying out.
But
these are
here we gonna finna have this discussion.
Right here in front of everybody. But these are personal habits.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, are you a morning person? If we have seen couples who have serious marriage problems just due to work schedules. Mm-hmm. We have couples, you know the couple I'm talking about, who really does need marriage counseling, but just due to she works first shift, he works second shift, and they're hardly ever home at the same time. They couldn't really conduct consistent marriage counseling, but I'll tell you, they need it.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely, you said you're a workaholic. Okay, well, you were definitely still a single person. And if you're a workaholic and you want to be married, you have to transition.
Then you have to transition. And this is what a lot of people don't understand. You have to transition from being single to unmarried.
To being unmarried.
In order to get married.
Right, because unmarried means that you're preparing your life.
Right, and your lifestyle.
For marriage. Okay, another part of operations management, we're going to go in a little bit. Ask them, what is your oldest childhood memory? What is your oldest childhood memory? It's like, okay, why would I ask that? Why would I ask about someone's oldest childhood memory? Because that lets me know, one, I'm going to be listening to see, is it a good one or a negative one? This gives you an idea of how someone was raised, about where the family that they came from. And the oldest childhood memory, like Hassan, he hadn't had a birthday party. And so when he turned 50, a couple of years ago,
you tell my age.
We went all out because he hadn't had a birthday party. But this question also lets you know about whether or not someone has experienced trauma. Ask someone, when's the last time you went home for a family visit? There are some people where family connections are very, very important. Mm-hmm. This will let me know whether or not you even go and visit family. If you don't go see your own, I know you're not going with me. You're not going with me to see my mama.
Exactly.
Okay. Question. When was the last time you were incarcerated? And for how long? Now notice, I didn't ask if you were incarcerated, because then that would be a yes or no answer and people could lie. But I asked, when was the last time you were incarcerated? And for how long? So you want to stay away from questions that lead to yes or no answers. When was the first time you were incarcerated? And what was the charge? What pending charges do you have? Or any pending court dates? Who is your parole officer that you report to? And people may say, wait, am I going to ask that out of the blue? Well,
I mean, let's keep that real, man. You know, more likely we got some things, especially within our community, that we run into often. And some of that is incarceration. So some of the men have been incarcerated.
There's women too.
Well, and that's true. And this is not a situation where we're trying to judge an individual or anything, or that person is such a lowly person because they've been incarcerated. But that is a question that that needs to be
asked. Or you could say, if I were to look at your criminal record, what would I see? Again, stay away from yes or no questions. It opens people up to lie.
Right. Because if you see a person who's doing a lot of theft, they doing a lot of stealing or whatever the case may be, you can kind of, in my opinion, don't make me right or wrong, just give me one. Depending on a crime, you could determine what type of person that you can really kind of see what some of the behaviors of that person might be. If a person does a lot of stealing, well, it's a lot of deception and lying in that person's behavior pattern. If that person is, get into fights or,
that they're impulsive.
They're impulsive and prone to violence.
Right. And so we're even saying that even the charges that will give you hints about the personality. Right. Things that are violent and things about anger, those are that's an impulsive person.
Right.
And while they may not be in criminal activity anymore, have they addressed
the impulsive anger behavior, the angry behavior?
Right. And so if someone with a history of theft, okay, he or she, they don't steal anymore. All right, you're not the neighborhood booster.
Right.
Anymore. That used to...
Yeah, that's the term.
Yeah, the neighborhood booster.
I used to like a booster.
Okay, Hassan used to date a booster.
Okay.
That was his girl.
Yeah.
We ain't always been Muslim here.
All right. I ain't telling all my business now. So.
But if this is someone who was the neighborhood booster, then you know that they are prone to being deceitful. And so have they addressed the area of...
Or sneaky.
Right, being sneaky. So if you see someone who has been arrested for some sexual behaviors, then you know where you are looking at a person who may have been exposed to some trauma.
Right.
Or who may have definitely has some deviant behaviors.
Right.
With them. They may not be doing it anymore, but have they addressed the symptom that exists?
Exactly.
And this is how we always say, y'all. We think, okay, that if I see this and I get all this information, this is the problem. You get all of this information, but you don't know how to interpret it.
Exactly, and that's the point. You get the information, you see it, but you don't know how to interpret it.
You don't know how to translate that data. And this is the reason why premarital counseling, not premarital advice, right. Premarital counseling is so important. Another thing for operations management, you want to know a person's individual. Notice we didn't say married. We said their individual long-term goals. There's a reason why we say your individual long-term goals. That is because whoever a person is as an individual, guess what? Doesn't go away.
Mm-hmm. They bringing it to the relationship.
Right. The things that you want innately and the things that drive you and inspire you and that you love before marriage, you love them after marriage. Mm-hmm. And so you ask for the long-term goals because we give you a scenario of a couple that we worked with. He wanted to backpack across the country. You know who I'm talking about. He wanted to get married and backpack across the world. And because she was on the other mid-30s, she wanted to get married and have kids.
I started having a family.
Okay. And to start having a family right away. And so, again, looking at individual goals. How are we going to backpack across the country while you want to have kids right away? We're going to put the baby in the backpack? Mm-hmm. And this issue really tore them apart.
Right.
They didn't get
married behind it. Right.
They didn't get married. And it really, I believe that he would have given up his backpack goals but he really was not willing to get married and start a family right away.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't think about that when he chose a woman who was in her late 30s, who wants a family. She probably doesn't want to delay. And these are the things that we need to think about, when we're about to marry someone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, so you want to jump to finances?
I mean, sure.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go down. We're going to talk money. I think health is a good one.
Well, I mean, we need to kind of, because we got a couple more we need to get to.
Okay. So we'll go down to money. Money, honey. All right. So one of the ways, how do you ask about people and money? One of the questions that you can ask is, what do you do in the event of an emergency? If you had a financial emergency, what would you do? If your engine went out on your car, Sharice wants us to go to health. All right, Sharice, okay. I got you. If you had a financial emergency, what would you do? If your engine went out on your car today, it is not under warranty. What do you do? And this will tell you about, does a person have savings? Does this person rely on credit? Does this person rely on family and friends? Because you really don't want to hear them, okay? You want someone who's going to eliminate using friends and families as a financial option. Mm. The two of you should be your first choice. Mm-hmm. Who will you call? Well, if I'm married, the first person I'm going to call is him.
Right.
Guess what, though? Most people are not going to say that. If you were married and you have a financial emergency, who's the first person you're going to call? First person I'm going to call is my husband or my wife. Mm-hmm. And we're going to see what we're going to do together. You want to know how a person responds in a crisis. Mm-hmm. You want to know that a person actually sees each other.
Mm-hmm. As a resource.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. You want my crisis response. Mm-hmm. And these are the things that you want to know. What is our plan for support in regard to an emergency? How do you feel like we will plan our first pregnancy? What plans do you have for the first pregnancy? Mm-hmm.
As far as financial.
Yes.
How are you stacking away or storing away finances to be able? Because let's say for instance, both of you are working, mm-hmm. and then she no longer can work because of the pregnancy. Mm-hmm. Then what are we going to do? What would you do? Or how would you be able to manage that? Because I mean, for somebody to go from just having half the responsibility to having full responsibility.
That's huge.
That's huge.
If I've never had this responsibility before. How often have you bought a new car? These are the things that you want to know. And how long do you keep a car? I know people who buy a new car and who only keep it 2-3 years and just keep going through the cycle. That might be important to you. But I want to go back to what you just said. Because especially for new couples mm-hmm. who've never had a baby before, mm-hmm. especially men, who have no idea how much a baby costs. Mm-hmm. This is crucial. What do you think a baby requires? Mm-hmm. Do you even ask these questions?
I mean, and then, not even that. Well, I'm going to share this. Because, and women are probably definitely a little better at it than men as far as budget and mm-hmm. dealing with budgets and whatnot. But if you got a guy that comes out of his mama house and marry you, and he's never had an apartment before, he's never had a car payment before, or that's all he ever had was his car payment, and he was tacky about paying it, or you have to look at what that person's history
is. And right. It may not be his mama's house. It might be his sister's house. his cousin's house.
Right.
And his idea, or her, I don't want to just pick on the men.
Right.
Their idea of responsibility is, I get my money and I'm going to give you a certain amount every month and I'll do what I want to do
with the rest of my money.
Oh, no. This is not marriage. You have to talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
That's not marriage.
Right.
How will you assume this whole new responsibility?
And we talking about from a standpoint of selecting somebody like this. Now, you're looking at what you are trying to do is determine what that person's behavior is going to be like.
And these things are all indications of,
because something that's going to happen, I think we're going to talk about a little bit here. A lot of times we ignore the red flags about a lot of this stuff.
Because we just think that, because all red flags are not red flags. You know, earlier we were saying you don't know how to translate the information. Mm-hmm. It's like you get the criminal history, you get the credit history, you get his resume, and you get all of that. Now, what does that mean?
What does all this mean at this point? Exactly.
And you don't know. Mm-hmm. You don't know what little innuendos and little hints and suggestions
mm-hmm.
that are hidden in there.
I'm sure he's asking for about health.
Okay. All right, some people talked about the red flags they ignored. We do.
We do.
All right.
We're going to get to that.
Okay, so you want to ask a person, what medications do you have? What prescription medications?
Well, I mean, are you? Well, you can't say are you.
We don't want yes or no
answers. Right.
Okay? What prescription medications do you have? And what medications have you been prescribed that you refuse to take? Right,
because here's guys, that was going to be the thing that I was going to say is the question I'll ask. So when was the last? How often do you take your medication?
Mm-hmm.
And then, they might look at you crazy and say, what you mean? How often do you have to take your medication?
Well, you'll say, I don't take any medication.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and maybe you don't. But I'm not going to ask you, do you have medication? They're going to say yes or no. Stay away from yes or no answers.
Because if you say, how often do you have to take your medication? And they say, twice a day, once a day. Okay, so what medications might that be?
Right.
Now you led into being able to ask what it is by inadvertently having them open the door for you in the first place. So, how often do you have to take your medication?
Because, and I don't like saying what it is that I'm about to say. Usually what happens is that we get into a marriage and we think, but I didn't know this. They didn't tell me this. You need to set it up so that you will have grounds for divorce. How will you have grounds for divorce? Because you asked and they deceived you. But if you've never asked, that's just you didn't get the information.
Mm-hmm.
But continuous deception, continuous lies that you find out after the marriage, it gives you grounds for divorce, because you can say, I did ask.
I asked these questions. I was real and specific about the questions that I asked.
Okay.
And is there any mental health issues? You're asking, is there any mental health issues in your family? Why is mental health issues in my family important? Because, hey, we could potentially have kids. I don't know. Hey, you might potentially fall off the wagon and something might happen for you. And then, you may have anxiety disorders or whatever the case may be. And if you know it, then that person can be truthful and say it.
Okay, does that make sense? Does that make sense to you? Okay. So, another thing that you can ask someone, I got to get back. I have so many screens open up here. When was the last time you were hospitalized, and for what reason? Again, you're not asking yes or no questions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And you're right, family history. Hassan just talked about family history. Do you have anyone in your family who, Do you have anyone in your family where everybody says, well, you know, that's just how they are?
Mm-hmm.
Because,
he touched.
Yeah.
He's special.
Yeah, you know, the people in your family that we just turn a blind eye to. Do you have someone in your family where y'all just, who has behaviors that y'all just excuse away? Oh, okay. So what are those behaviors that when you, this person who you say, well, you know, that's just how they are? Well, how are they?
How are they?
Tell me about how they are. What is this kind of stuff? I want to go back to prescription medication. I had too many screens open just then, and I had to get myself organized. You know, again, be mindful to ask, what are the prescriptions that you refuse to take? There are many people who have been prescribed something that they don't take it. You want to be very, very specific. You want to ask, do you smoke, inject, inhale any controlled substance or electronic cigarettes or anything other than fresh air? What is it? What is it that you smoke, inject, inhale that is a controlled substance or even electronic cigarettes that is anything other than fresh air? Again, look at how you are asking the questions. I am asking you specifically about these controlled substances. I'm not asking you, do you get high? I didn't ask you that. Mm-hmm. I didn't ask you for you to tell me a lie. I am being very, very specific. Eating habits. I want to know. Describe your eating habits. Do you eat on the run? This may seem small, but when we got married, this was a problem. Hassan's eating habits, they were a problem for us.
For her?
No, it was a problem for us.
For her?
If it's a problem for me, it's a problem for you. We're married.
Okay. Oh, okay.
You get it?
I got you, baby.
You know what they were?
I mean, that's what you're saying, because I was eating out a lot.
Because he ate out a lot. One, he ate out a lot. He has health issues. He ate out a lot. He ate unhealthy stuff. And then it was money. He spent a lot of money, and it was not okay. It wasn't okay, Hassan.
Okay, keep it moving.
You don't want to talk about that? Next session, we're going to stop with the lifestyle questions because we actually have several others, but we have to go into the next section, and that is use your wakil or your wali. You know that's your section.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm going to keep this because I don't know what our time look like, so we have to pray. So your wakil and your wali, a lot of times, here's the problem that a lot of people, men and women, are running into. They get emotionally attached to one another, and they try to circumvent the process of getting married and keeping that person in the middle of it, and so keeping that wakil in the middle of it and having their attention in it, or having their thoughts in it, or bouncing things off of them. And what happens is we get so enamored. Is that the word, enamored?
I am about you?
Yeah, baby, that's me. And so we get so enamored with each other, and you know everything is birds chirping and sun rays and all these old type of stuff here, until somebody do something that you had no business doing. And then the gloves come off, everybody, you know, the claws come out, the fangs come out, you know, all type of things happen when, if you had your wakil in play. One, he probably could have directed you away from that and probably could have taught you how to get through some of those things. Two, he could have been able to identify that this person is not going to be a good match for you, and then therefore, you know, let you know, hey, I think maybe you might need to move on and stay away from this situation here. And so you have that third party. So then Shaitan is not the third person.
Mm-hmm. I know especially for divorced people, we always say, well, I don't have to have a wakil.
That's not true.
Until wait a minute, I don't have to have a wakil or a wali until I get married. But this is the point, and that is true.
No, it's not.
Okay, what's true?
A woman needs a wakil through the whole process.
Okay, that's what I'm going to say.
Okay, married or unmarried. Not when I get married, I need a wakil at that point so he can show up and say, okay, that's the brother, all right, and I'm witnessing. Because that's what some people do.
Right.
They go they go and have these conversations, they go and, get all, misty-eyed and googly-eyed and everything and then when it's time to marry, then it goes, oh, yeah, by the way, we're going to get married tomorrow night at the masjid.
Right. And so not having your wakil and using the reason that because I'm a divorced woman and that I can, you open yourself up for the emotional risk that he's just talking about. You open yourself up to be googly-eyed and be stuck in a process with someone where it's like, but I'm divorced, I'm grown, I know what it is that I'm doing. Well, if that's the case, we wouldn't have so many divorces. Right.
After you've married the first time, because here's what happens: a person married, and this is men too. If you keep trying to circumvent the process, then you find yourself running into wife number 3, 4, 5, 6. And I mean, hey, teach his own. But at some point, we're not married. We're not having marriages. I mean, we having sleepovers. I mean, really. I mean, what?
Okay, but Hassan is a wakil for a couple of people. But for every situation where they have tried to go around you, because they have. Mm-hmm. He was no good.
Right.
Every
situation.
Every time. He was up to no good. And then we found out how much no good
he was up to
after the fact.
Right.
Because then in certain situations the woman, she found out additional information about the brother that she didn't even know. Mm-hmm. Like a baby on the way.
Mm-hmm. A whole baby. Isn't that the word they use?
That's what she said. He had a whole baby. And so each and every time this has happened. And so people try to go around this process for a reason.
I mean, and even in one of these instances, she was trying to do it right. And this is the beauty of her, because when she found out that he was raggedy, because I had to do one thing. Mm-hmm. I said, look, you need to go to his natural habitat.
Which goes into our next set thing.
Right.
Go see someone in their natural circle.
Right. And when that came up, she was, oh man, he started shaking like a tree,
With the wind blowing.
Okay. He was just shaking
because to see him in his natural habitat meant that she was going to find out about that whole baby that he hadn't told and he hadn't said anything about for months. Because she gave birth during this process.
So, we have to be in a position of following the process and using, when we talk about selecting, keep your wakil involved. Keep your wali involved.
Okay, another reason, you say, well, why do I need to see someone's house? We had a situation where the brother, he actually had OCD. And the sister, she didn't know it until she got to the dwelling because of the way his home looked.
Right, he packed rats.
He was a hoarder. He was a hoarder. She didn't know that until she got there. And then it was too late. We have the situation where the man, she didn't go to his house. She actually sent her wakil. Mm-hmm. And he lived in a car. He actually lived in the car. And he got upset because she wouldn't leave her housing, her safe, stable housing, and come live in the car with him. I'm not going to say it's just all men, because it's been situations where she took her kids and sent them all to her mother's house because she didn't want him to know she had children. But if he had gone to her house, you know, he would have seen those Legos and that Play-Doh set sitting over there. And so this is so important. You know, you have to see a person in their natural habitat. To see you when you want to see an elephant, y'all know elephants live in certain places. And so you need to go where
the elephants are.
You need to go where the elephants.
It's not walking down Memorial. The elephant is not walking down Memorial Drive. Okay?
No, they're not. They're not walking down the major highway.
Okay.
So if this person lives in a certain place, you need to go where they are so you can see them. All right. So we're gonna close for today. For our class attendees, we are going to send you all of the questions, the full list of them. You get the benefit of that for being in the class. We've got one more, and we will see you next week.
Assalamu alaikum. Subhanahu wa bihamdik. Shadu alayla ant wa astaghfirullah wa atubu alayk. Assalamu alaikum.